How are you? Good, good.
Nice to see you.
Good to see everybody. Thanks for coming out on kind of a dreary day.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our 2015 World AIDS Day in Fall River. I am so blessed that all of you came out in this wonderful rainy day. Today we're here to celebrate World AIDS Day. We're here to acknowledge those who have lost their lives to this virus. We also acknowledge those who continue to fight, and also to make sure that we put systems in place so that we can educate and prevent new infections. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge some of the people that are here, the committee that organized this, Seven Hills Behavioral Health, for always being up front and really making a commitment to the city of Fall River. I also would like to acknowledge from the Department of Public Health, Eddie DiBartoli. Thank you for your continued support, never forgetting our city. And for each and one of you, thank you for being here on this day. We've been doing this for many, many years, and we couldn't do this without the city's support. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you, to say a few words, the Honorable Mayor for the City of Fall River, Sam Sutter.
Thank you very much, Connie. Thank you. Connie, thank you very much. I too would like to begin by thanking organizations and individuals. So I'd like to thank for their efforts in battling and treating this disease. I would like to thank Seven Hills Behavioral Health. I would like to thank Sociedade Cultural Acoriana. I would like to thank CDC Family Planning, Making Proud Choices, and all the organizations in the city for their continued efforts in bringing awareness to the AIDS epidemic here at home and abroad. This is a day to remember those who've been lost to the epidemic and to raise awareness for the continuing seriousness of the epidemic still today. It's also an opportunity to remember just how far we've come in the last 34 years since the disease first surfaced. When we think back to the early 1980s, and I remember the first time that I heard about it, I think it was around the time that it appeared on the cover of Time magazine, to a time when HIV and AIDS first reached the public's consciousness. We need to remember that at that time there was a pervasive stigma surrounding the disease, which exacerbated the problem. The public did not understand what AIDS was, how it was spread, and the medical community itself was unsure of how to treat it. We've progressed by leaps and bounds since that time in the early 1980s. Treatments have improved greatly, although there's still a long way to go. Fewer and fewer children of HIV-positive mothers are being born with the virus. People have become much better educated about how to prevent the transfer of HIV, and the public at large understands much better that those with HIV and AIDS are not second-class citizens, but regular folks capable of living happy and productive lives. We have work to do to fully remove the stigma and to improve treatment to those with the disease so that they can live longer and healthier lives. So we remember the progress, but we also remember how far we still have to go. I am personally heartened to see all of you here demonstrating your support as we continue to fight this epidemic. I want to personally thank all of you for coming out. I love this array of thoughts, and so thank you all very much. And with that, I turn the microphone over to somebody more expert than I, Dr. V.
Actually, let me pick up on one theme that Mayor Sutter has just presented, and this is a quote, from Nelson Mandela. Let us give publicity to HIV/AIDS and not hide it, because that's the only way to make it appear like a normal illness. And I would add, so that its victims are not stigmatized and shunned and pushed aside. Well, it's time for the statistics that I've been able to cull from numerous sources. Currently, there are approximately 33,165 people in Massachusetts who have been diagnosed with HIV since 1999. The good news is that 60% are still living, and that number increases every year. The CDC reported initially that approximately 14% of those people with HIV don't know they have it. The current statistic is about 12.5% now. But nonetheless, if we extrapolate that to Massachusetts, the really bothersome figure is that there are probably close to 3,700 people in Massachusetts who are infected with HIV and do not know it, and have been able and are spreading it. If we look at Fall River, the number one risk factor for acquiring HIV is injectable drug use, followed by men having sex with men, followed by heterosexual exposure. That same figure pretty closely follows Bristol County. However, on a state level, the number one risk factor is men having sex with men, followed by heterosexual exposure, followed by injectional drug use. So what we've been seeing on a state level is an increase in cases in the risk factor men having sex with men increasing, and we've been seeing injectable drug use decreasing, where unfortunately in Bristol County and in Fall River, that is a risk factor, has still remained high. And I think we're more bothered that these figures are approximately 2 years old. And with the opiate crisis right now that we're seeing, I fear that injectable drug use as a risk factor on a statewide, if not national level, is going to increase. Still, most of the cases of HIV across the board in Fall River, Bristol County, and the state are predominantly in white, non-Hispanics, predominantly male, predominantly born in the USA. A good figure is that currently, right now, of those people with HIV in Fall River, Bristol County, and the state, as I said, nearly 60% of them are over age 50. What that means is not that older people are contracting HIV, but again, people with this disease are living longer. And as a matter of fact, the statistic I just looked at this morning in a recent article is that someone right now, if diagnosed with HIV at age 20 and going on to retroviral treatment, probably has a life expectancy of an additional 55 plus years, which means someone diagnosed, and that's the key, with HIV and getting on to treatment can be expected to have a normal life expectancy. Unfortunately, this figure doesn't apply to all ethnic groups because of disparities. Racial disparities in Massachusetts still play a very significant factor. The incident rates in whites in Massachusetts is about 139 cases per 100,000. When we look at our black, non-Hispanic population in Massachusetts, that number rises to 1,460 per 100,000. When we look at our Hispanic group, that figure is about 1,000 per 100,000. So clearly, racial disparities still play a great role, and that's one of the challenges that we have to face. How do we address the disparity and the differences in the rates and incidence of HIV? Bristol County is likely to be white, born in the United States, over age 50, and likely to have contracted it from injectional drug use. A little bit different than the national statistics. Let me end this with one more quote from former President William Clinton, who said, and it's important to point this out, we live in a completely interdependent world, which simply means we cannot escape from each other. How we respond to AIDS depends in part on whether we understand this interdependence we have with each other. It is not someone else's problem. This is everybody's problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. B.
We want to thank you before I bring back the mayor. I just want to extend the invitation for tonight. We're back here again at 5. We'll do a candle vision to Sociedade Cultural Acoriana, who's been hosting us for the past 11 years. And we're so grateful to them to always opening their doors. But events like this don't happen without the great collaboration among the agencies throughout the city. Every agency works very diligent and together in collaboration so we can deliver the best practice to our citizens here. So I just want to acknowledge again the agencies and thank them for their effort, not just today, but also on a daily basis. CFC, Crowd Choices, thank you so much. Seven Hills, the City of Fall River always helping us out and supporting us. STAR and Sociedade Cultural Acoriana for always helping us out putting this together. Yeah?
Connie, before I read the proclamation, I have to say that it is amazing to me that you could pronounce Sociedade Cultural Acoriana so much better than I did, considering that I live with my wife who was born in Fanage de Luge and my mother-in-law who lived for 20 years on St. Michael. So I'm impressed. I'm
That's
impressed.
Okay. I'll give private lessons.
Wow, you're gonna have to. Can we work on that a little
Sure.
bit? Yeah. So I have a proclamation to read on behalf of the City of Fall River. Whereas the global epidemic of HIV infection and AIDS requires a worldwide effort to increase communication, education, and united action to stop the spread of HIV and AIDS. And whereas the joint United Nations program on HIV/AIDS observes December 1st of each year as World AIDS Day, say, a day to expand and strengthen worldwide efforts to stop the spread of HIV/AIDS. That's why we're doing this on December the 2nd. This year, the World AIDS Day theme is Helping Hands and Mending Hearts. And whereas UNAIDS, United Nations AIDS, estimates that women comprise about half of all people living with HIV and AIDS. And whereas 38% of the people who are living with HIV/AIDS in the city of Fall River, HIV and/or AIDS, in the city of Fall River are women with injection drug use being the predominant mode of transmission. And whereas we in the city of Fall River believe that a stronger global response is needed to prevent and eventually stop the spread of new HIV and AIDS cases. Now therefore, I, C. Samuel Sutter, Mayor of the City of Fall River, do hereby declare that Fall River will observe World AIDS Day this day, Wednesday, December 2nd, 2015. I urge all citizens in the city to take part in activities and observances designed to increase awareness and understanding of HIV and AIDS as a global challenge, to take part in HIV and AIDS prevention activities and programs, and to join in the global effort to prevent the further spread of HIV and AIDS. Signed, Mayor C. Samuel Sutter. So I hope to see as many of you as possible tonight at 5 o'clock. I'll work on my pronunciation so that I can properly thank the Sociedade, and thank you all very much for listening. Thank you.
We're going to raise the flag up.
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah,
Hold it up, and then when you're done, I'll drop.
All right.
I'll go.
Good. Got it.
Yep.